James Marsden, you made one of the best TV comebacks of the year on Dead to Me as a completely new character. I know you emailed Liz Feldman after the first season, I guess half jokingly, about finding a way to bring Steve back after he drowned with a head wound. So what were your expectations when you sent that email?
Yeah, I wasn't joking at all. I demanded to come back. Yeah, you know what it was is I signed on for one season, and you know, we hadn't seen what Dead to Me looks like yet. I read the scripts. I thought they were funny. I thought the guy was, you know, it was a fun opportunity to play sort of a confident idiot, you know, a bad guy, but like a fun bad guy, you know. So it was. The season ended, and I had a great time with Liz Feldman and Linda and Christina, and then I got greedy. I wanted to come back. It was such a fun experience, and I, you know, obviously the show was very popular, and I got people, you know, coming up to me and calling me and wanting me to jump on their trampoline for them, and all the stuff that I got, all this crazy, silly stuff that Steve got to do in the first season. And I said, Liz, first of all, I'm so grateful. Congratulations on the season and how well it's done. And you know, how can I get invited back to the party? Basically, I'm always completely shameless in my endeavors to to get work. But no, it was something that we just enjoyed so much. And then by the end of it, I think Liz was and Netflix and the writers were kind of like, well, this is a really good formula. These three work really well together, and how do we do that? And Liz called me back a couple of weeks later and said, I know you're sort of kidding about the whole, hey, what are the odds of somebody surviving a massive head trauma compounded with drowning? And she said, I got an idea. Twins? And I remember laughing really hard at that. I was like wondering, like, is she joking or is she for real? And she was for real. And I was like, at first I went, how are we going to do this? Is this going to feel a little bit like a, you know, soap opera trope? And she said, yes, but I want to lean into that. And I know you now as a person more than I did when we started. And I want you to play a version of yourself. Like Steve didn't have a great heart, and Ben has a you know, a really good heart. And she said, I think he's more like you are, except maybe a little more clumsy and dorky. And I you know, it's one of those things when you take chances, you really want to be in the hands of somebody that you know is going to take care of you in the editing room and guidance on the set. And I said, whatever you want me to do, I'm on board. And that's kind of how it happened.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I love the heart thing in particular because it fits in the theme of trauma in the show, and then like you said, it's like Ben was born with a heart defect, but he has this great figurative heart, whereas Steve's heart was fine, but he was a dick. So,
yeah, Steve's heart physiologically was great, but at the center of it was emptiness. Ben physiologically has a bad heart, a complicated heart, but yes, a very a good, kind human being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you said, it's a trope, but you guys pull it off so well, and it's such a delicate tightrope to walk. So, what kind of discussions did you and Liz have about Ben's characterization? Because he's far more grounded and awkward and dorky compared to Steve, who's, you know, very like big man on campus.
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I mean, I think what we wanted to do, I think our focus at the beginning was what not to do, right? Like we want to make sure that this guy feels completely different than Steve. We don't want it to feel like, oh, it's just James Marsden doing a caricature of somebody. So we, you know, obviously the writing really grounded the character in specifics of his journey and where, you know, his past and his relationship with his brother, his sort of awkward attempts at self-deprecating humor, you know, but this unabashed, you know, kindness about him. So that right there created a contrast to Steve, and then stark contrast when you see scenes with Ben intercut with scenes with Steve. You know, you can really see the difference. But you know, I grew my hair out a little longer. I you know, he wasn't as slick as Steve with his look. You know, we were wearing sort of you know, not schlubby, but it was, you know, he's sort of a sandal wearing, you know, vest, you know, he's just sort of a plain vanilla guy that Jen would probably, you know, he just, like, I would say he was, you know, non-offensive. Just like a really not a great thing anybody wants to be called. But Liz guided me on set. She said, "Okay, when you're doing this, let's lean more into Steve's awkward dorkiness more here. Let's pull back on, you know, you did a take where you were kind of like witty and charming, and you showed a little more confidence. When I see that, I see more Steve. So maybe be a little off balance, and, you know, on your back foot a little bit more." And so she was just like, you know, it's like I had a dial on me, and she kind of turned the dial up or down throughout the whole process, and, you know, and made sure I wasn't, you know, that it wasn't going back to old habits where Steve would come out. So it was really a testament to her, and we just, you know, let the writing lead the way, and like I said, I just sort of dove into the, you know, the sweet nerdiness of the guy, knowing that was going to be a real different feeling than Steve was, obviously.
Did you feel any sort of pressure to kind of nail this characterization? Because people, like, I mean, when I've told people about the twist, they kind of roll their eyes, and I'm like, yeah, but it works, trust me. So did you feel pressure to pull this off?
Yeah, I did. Well, and like you said, mainly because I had the same reaction most everyone did, which is, are people going to buy this, you know? And then, you know, I have a great rapport with Christina and Linda, where we can kind of, you know, rib each other and you know, send jabs each other's way in a playful way. And I showed up on the first day, and Christina gave me a big hug, and back when we could hug, you know, each other. And she said, she looked me in the eye, she goes, "Twins, huh? Okay, well, Marsden, the season's all on you." You better make it work. And then I saw Linda, you know, 6 hours later in the makeup trailer, and she did the same thing, gave each other a big hug, and she just said, "Wow, twins. No pressure, Marsden." So, you know, but we joke with each other. The support group is huge. Yeah, there was a little pressure to, you know, you didn't want to feel like it was a gag. You don't want the audience to feel like it was a gag. And I think the trickiest part was the first 2 episodes, like really kind of finding the footing of this guy, and what his voice is, and, you know, he's a little stiffer, a little more closed off than Steve, and a lot less confident. And then after 2 or 3 episodes, I kind of forgot about Steve, and it was like I was playing another character on a completely different show, or at least that's the sort of tunnel vision that I installed in my head to focus on. And happily, I think most of the people who watched the show, you know, got on board. And throughout the journey of the season, you know, we look at Ben as, you know, a guy that the audience is invested in, and we kind of forget about Steve until we're reminded of his horribleness.
I mean, I think that's very true, because I did forget about Steve, and then when the flashbacks came back, I was like, oh, right, him, and it's like, oh, it's also James Marsden. So,
well, that was the main thing too. It's like, I don't want anybody to see James Marsden. I wanted everyone to see, you know, Steve, like, was, you know, he had a few more handles to grab on him as a character. You know, he was so specifically extreme in his villainry, I guess, his badness, that it was, for me, it's always easier to play characters that are a little more extreme and a little more away from who you are. It's always harder to play somebody who's closer to who you are on a daily basis. So, you know, and then when Ben came along, it was like, okay, how do I, you know, bring a little bit of me to it, but also, you know, he has his dark side too, but I wanted it to really feel like, okay, they're not watching me, the actor, they're watching, you know, they're watching these new characters, and they're investing in them, and then it's essential, it's vital that you buy it, that you believe it. Otherwise the storylines don't work, and, you know, the turn of events don't necessarily have the impact that you want them to.
Definitely. Well, in the 5th episode, you dance for Jen. Those were some sweet moves. Was that all you?
Thanks.
It was all you.
No, that was all CGI. That was we depleted our digital effects budget to have someone who can actually. I'm a much better dancer than that, so
okay.
they had to CGI a version of me awkwardly dancing. No, that was. I read the script that we were shooting on that Thursday. I read it on that Monday, and it said Ben tap dances for Jen, and I thought, okay, well that's going to change. How the hell I can't tap dance? It's not something you can learn in an afternoon. So I texted Liz. I said, when are we shooting this? She goes, in a couple of days. So I can't. I don't know how to tap dance. She said, oh, it's okay. We got a choreographer. We're going to send you some videos and have some easy steps. I said, listen, I will give it the old college try, but it ain't gonna look like he had a lifetime full of tap experience. She said, look, don't worry about it. Whatever dances you can do. Or I said, listen, I can dance like someone who thinks he can dance, but it's not very good. And she said, okay, well, lean into that. So we just kind of, it's one of those things where like you know, the collaboration that you have with the director, the writers, you know, everybody on set, the other actors, you know, it evolves. It's constantly evolving, and it's sort of morphing per each performer. And that was something, an example of that. It was like he tap dances. Well, on the day, Liz was like, okay, well, it's gonna have equal effect if as long as it's endearing, as long as it's, you know, it's charming that he's cheering her up and at the expense of making a fool of himself and humiliating himself, which I excel at, by the way. I think Liz found that out about me. She goes, oh, okay, well, he likes to he's comfortable being the buffoon. So yeah, that was a cool scene because it did a 180 halfway through, and he then gets very vulnerable talking about his brother and the last time he saw him and the regrets that he has about how their relationship ended. You know, he's far more emotionally available than Steve ever was or will be. Well, he won't be because he's gone and dead. But yeah, it was, you know, I got to thank the writers for giving me material to really play with. Like, just all encapsulated in that one scene was this very endearing guy who's making a fool of himself to cheer her up, and then on a turn of that, it gets intimate and vulnerable and serious, and has the courage to show this woman who, I think for the first time in Ben's life, he's not invisible. Like, he's being seen by this woman, and it feels good to him. I think he's lived in Steve's shadow his whole life, but for the writers to know, to kind of play to your strengths and write something for you, knowing that you can pull it off. It's a testament to them, and it's a great safety net. And it's, you know, like I said before, you take chances when you're in the hands of good writers and good showrunners, and I can't speak highly enough for the people involved in Liz Feldman and all the writers on the show.
Yeah, the show is really good at pivoting between drama and dark comedy, and like that scene was a really good example of that. And also that conversation kind of set both of them up on the path of starting a relationship. So did you know from the beginning of the season that Ben would become Jen's love interest?
I didn't know the specifics, but I had an inkling that it was going to go there. I think Liz gave me a very broad view of the arc, Ben's arc through the second season. I didn't, like I said, I didn't know specifics of how it was going to unfold. But Liz has this way of saying, and this happens, and maybe this happens, and maybe not. So she's being very fair to, you know, basically tell you what you need to know for the scenes that you're getting ready to shoot, but not completely divulge everything, because one, it does constantly change, and two, to keep it fresh, to keep you know, to kind of keep you on your toes and keep you guessing a little bit, and I like that. I mean, I got used to that on Westworld. We never really knew what was going on. I mean, that's not fair. We did know what was going on for the scenes that we were shooting, but around every corner, even for us, every script we read was a reveal and a surprise. And it was a lot like the experience that we wanted the audience to have. So Liz did a little bit of that as well. She didn't tell me exactly, you know, I didn't read every script because they were getting written, but she kind of gave me the broad view of where it was going. And to have it end in this you know, kind of a little romantic note between Jen and Ben was kind of a cool thing. And then, of course, in typical Dead to Me fashion, that rug gets ripped out, and the perversity of the writing comes in, and you saw the way it ended. So it's like just when you get comfortable with the good feelings and all the, you know, the butterflies and the rainbows, you know, someone comes in and wipes the slate clean.
Well, that ending, he's drunk driving after having found out Steve is dead, and he crashes into Jen and Judy. How did you approach that scene? Like, does he know who he's hit, or does he just know he crashed into somebody?
It's a good question. I think the point of the scene was very simply to have the action speak the words, to tell the audience what to feel. And I think the important thing that Liz was stressing was that we maintain a level of ambiguity, so that it can carry over potentially into the third season, which is, we don't want every question answered at the end of this. We don't want to know whether he knows that was them or not, whether he's going to remember it or not. You know, he indicates early on that he's a bad drunk and has, you know, has a history of blacking out sometimes. I'm not saying that he did. I think that the point of that scene is to keep it open-ended and to maintain ambiguity. So it's left to the audience to interpret the way they want to interpret it. And of course, you know, leaves you wanting more and wanting to know more. And obviously that's a great setup for the third season.
How do you think?
Is that a good way of not answering your question?
Yes. I mean, you guys still haven't been renewed yet, but fingers crossed, I think it's happening. I don't know when you'll be able to shoot it though. So, but how do you think Ben will react if and when he finds out that Jen killed Steve?
How Ben would react if he finds out that Jen killed Steve? Ooh. That sounds like a really fun situation for Liz Feldman to explore. I think I could see a big grin coming across her face, going, "Yes, I want to emotionally drag my characters through every situation. You just think there's no way that this could happen." Because I think that's part of the joy of the show too, right? I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, I'm sure, obviously. I mean, I'm thinking of it like, wait, does he also know that he did a hit and run and hit Jen and Judy when he's right? I mean, he is a maelstrom of like a hurricane of conflicting emotions and a very complicated situation. I'm sure that, but I think that at his core, unlike Steve, I think at Ben's core, he does wake up in the morning and make an effort to try to do the right thing and try to understand. And I think that I would like to think that he would, you know, that he would come around to some form of understanding or forgiveness about it. And maybe that would be buoyed by, you know, the hearts that come out of his eyes when he looks into Jen's eyes, right? I mean, you know, he's like a little kid. He's just infatuated with her. So obviously, I think he's going to give her the benefit of the doubt to hear her side of the story. But I'm in for however it unfolds, but just separating myself from the character for a moment, I believe that, you know, at his core, there's goodness there, and that he believes in forgiveness. He believes in, you know, that we're fallible as humans. It's the human condition. We do make mistakes, and it's nuanced and it's complicated. Whether he can articulate that or not, I don't know. Because he's too busy staring at her into her eyes.
It's just like cat hard eyes. Well, you were on one of my favorite shows, 30 Rock. I love Chris Cross.
Oh, great.
And
Nice.
They're coming back for a special in a couple of weeks. So are you going to be part of that?
I don't know.
What can you say?
I don't know. Is it shot already?
I don't know. Have you shot something?
No, I haven't. Yeah, I don't know. I've heard about it, but I don't know where that stands. I think we're all trying to figure out how to shoot anything at the moment. You know, it's obviously very different times than it was a year ago. But boy, what an experience that was. And I mean, I jumped at the chance to you know, to work with the other Liz. But Tina was just one of my, you know, comedic heroes. She's really, really wonderful. That show was very special. The writing was insanely spot on, and I think the real star of the show. You know, that meta humor. And again, like a great character, just go in and not be sort of unabashed. I guess there's a little element of Prince Edward to him, you know, from Enchanted. Like he's just like, here I am, sort of dork and all, and I love you. I don't know. I like playing those characters because they lean into that goodness, even if it's not cool, with like reckless abandon. And you know, he's okay with selling hot dogs on the side of the street. I don't know. It was a really cool experience, and I thought that was another one. I thought it was going to be one season, and that was it. And then they said, "Hey, do you want to come back and get married?" And I thought, "Wow, yes. is it? Yeah, sure." That means this is working? Yeah. So it was like it just kind of evolved into, you know, another season for me with her, and yeah, it was great. I look forward to whatever they have planned, whether I'm a part of it or not. Mm-hmm. We'll see.
Well, I hope you are.
Am I being cryptic?
I mean, I'll just mark this down for July 16th, and then I'll come back to you on that.
Okay.
James, it was great speaking with you. Congratulations on season 2. I can't wait for season 3. I think it's definitely happening.
Thank you very much.
Yes, stay safe and wear a mask. Thank you.
I do, and I do everywhere. Yeah, you too. Take it easy.
Bye.